All right, we have another episode of Would I Repurchase These Palettes? Hello and welcome. If you are new here, my name is Rachel, and if you're not new here, thank you so much for coming back. I have a stack of 8 palettes that if they went missing from my collection, if they were stolen, if they just disappeared into thin air, would I go out and repurchase them? Looking at this stack, I feel like most of these are gonna be easy for me to tell you. I'm gonna link all the palettes that are still available down below in the description box, as well as everything that is on my face. And this video idea was created by Dolly Mama Beauty. I will link her channel down below if you wanna check her out. And let's do it. I've seen many creators do this type of video, but my spin on it is I imagine that I have owned these palettes before. They have gone missing, whatever the case, but I know the quality, I know how much use I get out of them, I know the formulas, stuff like that. It's not that these are launching for the first time, and that does make things a little different, okay? Because generally with my favorite brands, if they're relaunching something, I'm gonna buy it. But me having a YouTube channel, I rarely use old palettes, so would I go out of my way to repurchase them? So that doesn't necessarily mean if I don't want to repurchase a palette that I don't enjoy it. The first palette, I'm just gonna go at random, and I picked these at random, by the way. I did a random number generator, and I went and counted in my collection, picked out the palette. If I had already picked that palette in the past for one of these videos, then I just counted again until I got to something that I didn't get before. I'm hoping I'm not repeating anything, but I may be. Okay, let's start off with the first palette I want to talk about is the Nomad Fetes de Provence palette. I remember when this palette came out last spring, I want to say, I was obsessed. When they showed the color story on Instagram, I remember thinking that is one of the most beautiful springtime color stories that I've ever seen. And Nomad does an amazing job with color stories in general. I think they really know how to curate a gorgeous looking color story, but also a gorgeous color story to use on the eyes. And this one is no different. You've got pinks, you've got purples, you've got this beautiful like pop of yellow in the middle. And I love this palette. Love this palette. I did purchase this one myself. I think the mattes in this are the good Nomad mattes where they are not overly pigmented, but they're just like blendable, easy to use. The shimmers in this vary. And I remember DMing the owner of Nomad, or one of the owners of Nomad, and they were saying that they wanted to put a couple of different types of shimmer formulas in here. So some of them are a little softer, which makes sense with the color story. And then we have more of their traditional, very beautiful, opaque, sparkly shimmers. And we have a duochrome yellow to green here as well. So different shimmer formulas, really good mattes, a beautiful color story. So I think you know what my answer is. It's yes. And Nomad is one of those brands, and I actually tried not to include any other brands that I'm going to be a broken record with, like Unearthly, Blend Bunny, Nomad, Odin's Eye. Like those are my favorite brands. And if I were to lose something from them, I would repurchase it just for the fact that I want all of their palettes in my collection for the most part. So I would definitely be repurchasing this one. Next palette I want to talk about is the Hipdot and Korn Follow the Leader palette. So this came out earlier this year. I love Korn. They're very nostalgic to me. I enjoy their music. I saw them perform last year actually. And so this definitely, like the IP part of it, got me. I love how it's an actual CD as the cover. I find that to be awesome, and it's their like iconic album, Follow the Leader, and it's got foil detail to it. And then when you open it up, here is the color story. The color story is absolutely beautiful, really gorgeous neutrals, which I love neutrals. There are 2 pressed glitters in this, which definitely doesn't make me very happy. I won't use those shades, but all the rest are really nice. The mattes in this are very good. I was actually very surprised. I'd never tried Hipdot before. I do have the My Chemical Romance PR box that I've actually never used the products because I don't want to touch it because it's so pretty. So this is the actual first Hipdot palette that I ever used. I bought this and the Evanescence one as well. And the shimmers in this are pretty. There's a duochrome up here that's like not my ultimate favorite, but this shimmer down here is really pretty. Would I repurchase this? I think I would, just for the fact of like, again, the merch aspect of it, being Korn, being this like CD case, and I like the shadows inside. Do I see myself like really reaching for this a lot? No, probably not, but I do love the merch aspect of it, so I would repurchase it. And next up, I have the Wicked Widow Beauty Scissorhands 2 palette. I love me some Edward Scissorhands, love the movie, again, very nostalgic, and I really, really love the quality of this palette. I think the shimmers are just top notch. If you like a very shiny, wet looking shimmer that is super impactful on the lid and you like blues, this would be a really good one to pick up. I think it's honestly incredible. And the mattes in this are also good. They're very good. They're not like my most favorite mattes I've ever tried in my life, but I do really like them. And I think this is a beautiful palette. This is one of those situations that I don't think I would repurchase this solely for the fact of the color story. I'm not really a blue girl. I do wear blue eyeshadow for YouTube, to demo palettes, to test palettes out. But if I'm gonna do my makeup off camera, blue is the last color I'm gonna reach for. So it's just a color story thing. I wouldn't go out of my way to buy it. Just because if this was missing from my collection, I have so many other blue palettes that I would be fine with. But if you like blues and you like shimmers, this is a very, very good one. And then the next palette I want to talk about is the Natasha Denona Mini Nude. I'm already going to give this away by saying I wore this on my wedding day. This is one of my favorite Natasha Denona palettes in my collection. It is just beautiful. I don't know what it is. Every time I talk about this palette, I say, there is just this like je ne sais quoi with the looks that I get from this. They're neutral, but they're sophisticated. They're understated, yet beautiful. Just gorgeous. I love how this is set up. You have 2 different mattes that are varying in depth. You have 3 different shimmers that are varying in depth and undertone. You have this beautiful shade that I would love to use as my inner corner. And I can use this on my lid if I want it a slightly deeper shade. And this is more of a gold for something more mid-tone. Love how this is set up. Love the quality of the shadows. The mattes are great. Natasha Denona, not overly pigmented, really easy to work with mattes. And these shimmers are really wet looking, not sparkly, not over the top, but again, very sophisticated, very beautiful. Absolutely would be repurchasing this. And in fact, if I had to get rid of all but like, actually that would be a really good video to do, wouldn't it? If I had to get rid of all my eyeshadow palettes, except for like 10 palettes, which ones would I keep? I'm digging myself a hole because that is going to be a really hard video. But I'm guaranteeing this would be in the top 10. The next palette I want to talk about is the Bella Beaute Bar Star-Crossed Lovers palette. This was their Valentine's Day release last year, I want to say. It has to be last year. It can't be this year, is it? So this is what it looks like on the inside. It is a gorgeous pink, purple, Valentine's Day themed palette. I really like this palette. I think that their matte formula has improved in their recent palettes. I mean, I bought the recently de-influenced palette recently, and I think the mattes in that are a little bit better than this. These aren't bad though. They are still good mattes. They're just good. They're not like great. The shimmers in this are really beautiful, kind of giving the same idea as the Wicked Widow Beauty, where they're very shiny, very sparkly. Some of these are duochromes. There is a multi-chrome up here as well, and some are just standard shimmers. Absolutely beautiful. I love how it goes from light to deep in both the mattes and the shimmers. Would I repurchase this?
3,000 years later.
My gut is telling me no, and only just because, like I said, kind of with the Wicked Widow Beauty, if this was to go missing, I do have other pinky, mauve-y palettes in my collection that I would be fine with. Like, this isn't one I would be like totally missing with all my heart. So my instinct is to say I wouldn't repurchase it, but I do really enjoy this palette a lot. I think it's absolutely beautiful, but that's my final answer. Next palette I want to talk about is the ColourPop That's Taupe palette. I got this a long time ago, and this is one of my favorite ColourPop palettes. I think both the quality and the color story, which is interesting because I'm not really a cool toned lover. As you can see by my eye look today, it's about as warm tone as it can get. By the way, I have 2 of the Game Beauty palettes on my eyes today. They're new like elemental palettes. Of course, like I said, everything's linked down below, but I love how this look came out. Back to this palette. This palette, I love. I love, love, love. I like, again, light to deep in the mattes. The mattes are really good quality. I like ColourPop mattes in general. I don't usually have a problem with ColourPop mattes. And then these shimmers are really pretty, really, really nice. You have 3, again, different depths and different undertones in terms of the shimmers. And then you have a Super Shock. I've had this palette for a long time. Let's feel the Super Shock. It's a little dried out, but it's still really pretty. Yeah, it's a little bit more of like a toppery shade. I would repurchase this. I do love this palette, and I have to use this. So there's a piece of hair on it, sorry. I haven't used this in quite a long time, but it's a really good one. I already know my answer for this, and if you've been here on my channel a long time, you're gonna know what my answer is. So this is the Pat McGrath Blitz Astral Quad in Iconic Illumination. So I will say the whole presentation and the packaging is absolutely beautiful, as it should be for the amount of money that it costs. It feels very heavy, like this is a weapon. You could hurt someone with it. And when you open it up, you have a quad of all 4 of her special Blitz Astral formula, which is very sparkly. And there's no doubt these are really pretty. No question about it. But I have to say, I have indie shadows in my collection, indie palettes in my collection that compare to this for way less money. And it's going to be a rare occasion I reach into a quad of shimmers. It's just not something I would be reaching for, and I haven't used this in a really long time, basically since I bought it a couple of years ago. I should be using it because of how much it costs. They are really pretty shades, especially this one up here is like extra special. It's very, very sparkly and like bright and really gorgeous. I would not repurchase this. I bought this on sale as well, so I didn't pay full price for it, but it was still expensive on sale. And I'm just not, like, I have this palette and I have her release for holiday 2021. And I think the palettes are nice. Like, I like them. I don't get the hype. Don't cancel me. I'm sorry. If you like Pat McGrath shadows, and maybe I'm missing out. Like, those are the only 2 palettes I have. If you like Pat McGrath, let me know what palette you think is like her best palette, or a palette that you love from Pat McGrath that I'm missing out on. Because I'm just not like a huge fan, and this one I would not repurchase. And then last but not least, we have the Batty Bean and Shroud It's Freakin' Bats palette. Absolutely love this palette, and I would definitely repurchase it. I'm just gonna start off. One of my shadows is broken, so I'm scared it's gonna fall out. Anyway, this is a gorgeous spooky season palette, but it's not strictly spooky season. You've got blues here, but I just love the undertones of this palette, and the formulas are great. The mattes are very pigmented. The shimmers are very wet looking, smooth, not chunky, not textured, but really smooth and shiny on the lid. And I love Betty Jean. She is one of my favorite creators. I met her in person a couple of months ago, and she's just a very nice person as well. But apart from that, the palette itself is beautiful. Again, I have to pull this out. It's been a long time since I've used this palette, but I absolutely would repurchase it. Okay, so let's do a little recap. I have 5 palettes that I would repurchase. Natasha Denona Mini Nude, Batty Bean and Shroud It's Freakin' Bats, ColourPop That's Taupe, Hipdot and Korn Follow the Leader, and Nomad Fetes de Provence. And then 3 palettes that I would not repurchase: Wicked Widow Beauty Scissorhands 2, Bella Beaute Bar Star Crossed Lovers, and Pat McGrath Blitz Astral Quad in Iconic Illumination. That is a mouthful. All right, now I want to hear from you. Do you agree with my choices? What would you repurchase or not if you've tried these palettes before? I would really love to know your thoughts because I love hearing from you. And if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up. That helps me out a lot when you do that. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, I would love it if you would consider subscribing before you leave. I do upload videos weekly, and I'd love to see you back on my channel again. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.